When I think about the first time I held the keys to my own house, it wasn't just about brick and wood, it was about a dream realized. For many of us, owning a home has long been tied to the American dream, a symbol of security and success. That moment you walk through the front door knowing it belongs to you brings a sense of pride that renting simply doesn't offer. It's not just a financial milestone, it's an emotional one. Owning a home often represents stability. Over the years, it becomes the backdrop of our lives, the place where children grew up, birthdays were celebrated, and holidays brought everyone together under one roof. Every corner seems to hold a memory. I still remember the markings on the door frame where we tracked the kids' height year after year. You can't put a price on that kind of history. There's also a deep sense of independence that comes with ownership. When you own, you make the rules. You can paint the walls any color you like, plant a garden, or remodel without asking permission. That freedom, especially after decades of following work schedules and life's obligations, gives a comforting sense of control. Your home truly becomes an extension of your personality and values. Another emotional layer is the security it provides. Knowing you have a permanent place to call your own brings peace of mind, especially as you age. In a world that often feels uncertain, a home can be a safe harbor, a constant that grounds you. It's reassuring to wake up each morning knowing that the roof over your head is not dependent on a landlord's decision or the rise of rental prices. There's also a legacy aspect to homeownership. Many retirees feel proud knowing their home could be passed down to children or grandchildren, providing them with a head start. That sense of leaving something behind, something tangible and meaningful, carries a powerful emotional weight. It turns a house into a family treasure, part of a story that continues beyond your lifetime. Finally, a home gives us a sense of belonging, not just within the walls but in the community. Neighbors become friends, streets become familiar, and the town becomes part of your identity. When you own, you tend to put down deeper roots, and those connections can be especially valuable in retirement, when relationships and community support mean more than ever. One of the most comforting aspects of owning a home in retirement is knowing that you no longer have to worry about rent payments eating into your fixed income. Once the mortgage is paid off, the roof over your head is yours, and that brings a sense of stability few other investments can match. Instead of monthly rent checks, your primary responsibilities are taxes, insurance, and upkeep, costs that are generally more predictable than fluctuating rent prices. I remember when my wife and I made our last mortgage payment. The sense of relief was tremendous. After decades of budgeting carefully, we finally had the freedom to redirect that money into savings, travel, or even just enjoying a meal out without guilt. For retirees on a fixed income, that stability can mean the difference between living comfortably and constantly worrying about bills. There's also the benefit of building equity over time. Even in retirement, your home remains an asset, one that can appreciate in value. Unlike rent, which is money spent without return, ownership gives you something tangible that holds worth. If needed, you can tap into that equity through downsizing, selling, or even a reverse mortgage. Options that give retirees flexibility in managing their finances. Of course, homeownership is not without its financial burdens. Property taxes can rise, insurance premiums can increase, and repairs are inevitable. I recall the shock of having to replace a roof just a few years into retirement, an expense that wiped out several months of careful budgeting. These surprises remind us that while ownership brings stability, it also requires a cushion for the unexpected. Still, there's a sense of control when you own. Unlike renting, where landlords can raise rates or refuse to renew a lease, owning means you decide how long you stay and how much you invest in maintenance. That control translates to peace of mind, because your housing situation isn't at the mercy of someone else's decisions or the volatility of the rental market. In many ways, financial stability through ownership is about more than just dollars and cents. It's about predictability. Retirees thrive on routines and consistency, and knowing your housing costs won't suddenly skyrocket is invaluable. While there are risks, the foundation of stability that comes from owning often outweighs the challenges, making it one of the strongest arguments for keeping a home during retirement. When I was in my 40s and 50s, I didn't think twice about mowing the lawn, climbing ladders to clean gutters, or even fixing a leaky faucet on a Saturday afternoon. Those tasks were part of the rhythm of homeownership. But as the years went by, those same chores started to feel heavier both physically and mentally. In retirement, maintenance can turn from a small inconvenience into a real burden. One vivid memory comes to mind. A few winters ago, I tried shoveling snow after a storm. What used to be an easy half-hour job left me exhausted and sore for days. That's when I realized home maintenance isn't just about money, it's about energy, mobility, and health. These little tasks accumulate, and they can slowly chip away at the joy of owning a home. Hiring help is an option, of course. Many retirees rely on lawn services, cleaning crews, or handymen. But that convenience comes with a price. Even small monthly expenses add up, and suddenly the financial stability of ownership doesn't feel as solid. I once calculated that over the course of a year, just lawn care and minor repairs cost more than what some friends paid in rent for maintenance-free apartments. There's also the stress of unexpected repairs. A broken water heater, a plumbing leak, or a failing air conditioner doesn't wait until you're financially or emotionally ready. I remember waking up to a flooded basement one spring. It wasn't just the cost of repairs, it was the disruption, the mess, and the anxiety that came with dealing with contractors. At a younger age, these problems felt manageable. In retirement, they feel overwhelming. Another part of the burden is the emotional weight of responsibility. When you own a home, everything falls on your shoulders. A rental, by contrast, allows you to pick up the phone and call the landlord when something goes wrong. That shift in responsibility can be a tremendous relief, especially as we try to simplify life in our later years. Ultimately, the burden of maintenance forces many retirees to reevaluate what truly matters. For some, the pride of ownership outweighs the effort. For others, the desire for peace of mind leads them toward renting or downsizing to a simpler home. Recognizing that maintenance is not just a financial challenge but a lifestyle one is key to making a thoughtful decision about whether to own or rent in retirement. One of the greatest advantages of renting in retirement is flexibility. When you rent, you're not tied down to one property or neighborhood. If life changes, whether it's health, family, or simply a desire to live somewhere new, you can make that move without the stress of selling a house. I've met retirees who rented for just that reason, enjoying the ability to try out different communities until they found the one that felt right. I remember visiting a friend who had decided to rent an apartment in a retirement community after selling her home. She told me how refreshing it felt not to worry about long-term commitment. When her grandchildren moved to another city, she was able to follow them easily, something that would have been much harder had she still been tied to a mortgage and a house. Renting gave her the freedom to be near family without delay. Another part of this freedom is the lack of maintenance responsibilities. When you rent, a broken appliance or a leaky roof isn't your problem, it's the landlord's. That peace of mind can't be overstated. For retirees who want to focus on enjoying their golden years rather than scheduling repairmen, renting offers an almost carefree lifestyle. There's also the opportunity to downsize without guilt. For many of us, our family homes are filled with memories, but also with rooms we no longer use. Renting allows you to choose a space that fits your current lifestyle, not one built for raising children. A smaller, more manageable apartment or condo means less cleaning, less clutter, and more time for the things you actually enjoy. Financially, renting can free up resources too. By selling a home and moving into a rental, retirees often unlock equity that can be used for travel, hobbies, or simply building a cushion of savings. I knew a couple who sold their house and used part of the proceeds to take a cross-country trip they'd dreamed about for years. Renting allowed them to experience life without feeling weighed down by property responsibilities. Most importantly, renting provides adaptability. Life in retirement can be unpredictable, health can change, families can move, and needs can shift. Renting keeps you nimble, able to adjust your surroundings to match your stage of life. That flexibility for many is not just convenient, it's a form of freedom that makes retirement more enjoyable. When it comes to deciding whether to rent or own in retirement, cost is often the first thing people think about, and for good reason. Retirement usually means living on a fixed income, so every dollar has to be accounted for. The choice between renting and owning isn't just about what looks cheaper on paper. It's about understanding the hidden costs and long-term impact on your financial comfort. On the surface, owning a home can appear more stable. Once your mortgage is paid off, the only recurring housing expenses are property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. For many retirees, that predictability is a relief. I remember feeling proud the day I no longer had a mortgage, thinking I'd finally cut one of the biggest costs from my budget. But I quickly learned that mortgage-free doesn't mean cost-free. Maintenance costs have a way of creeping in when you least expect them. A furnace that stops working in the middle of winter or a plumbing issue that demands immediate attention can easily set you back thousands of dollars. These aren't optional expenses, they're unavoidable. Over time, they add up, and sometimes they even rival the steady cost of renting. On the other hand, renting brings its own financial risks. Rent is rarely fixed forever. Landlords raise prices, markets change, and suddenly the apartment that fit comfortably into your budget is stretching it thin. I've seen friends move into affordable rentals only to find themselves squeezed a few years later when the rent climbed beyond their means. That unpredictability can feel unsettling when you're trying to plan out your golden years with care. Another factor is opportunity cost. If you sell a home and rent, the equity you gain from selling could be invested, spent, or saved. That money might provide more flexibility than keeping it tied up in a house. But the reverse is also true. Owning allows your property to continue building value, giving you an asset that could help down the road. Both paths have trade-offs, and the right choice depends on how you want your finances to work for you. Ultimately, cost considerations aren't about picking the cheaper option. They're about choosing the one that aligns with your long-term goals and lifestyle. Renting might free up cash for travel and experiences, while owning might protect you from rising housing costs. The challenge is looking beyond the monthly numbers to see the bigger financial picture of your retirement years. One of the most overlooked parts of the rent versus own debate in retirement is health. When we're younger, we tend to assume we'll always be able to climb the stairs, mow the yard, or carry groceries into the house. But as we age, mobility becomes a real consideration. What once felt effortless can gradually turn into daily challenges that affect not only comfort but safety. I've watched friends struggle with multi-story homes after knee surgeries or hip replacements. The same staircase that once echoed with the sound of children running up and down becomes a mountain to climb. In those moments, a large home can feel less like a dream and more like a burden. That's where renting shines, especially when you can choose a single-level apartment or a community designed with accessibility in mind. Home modifications are always an option for those who want to age in place, but they come at a cost. Installing stair lifts, walk-in showers, or ramps can be expensive, and not every home is easily adaptable. I once had to help a neighbor remodel her bathroom after a fall, and while it made her life safer, the expense and disruption were overwhelming at her stage of life. Renting a property already designed for seniors would have spared her that stress. Another factor is proximity to healthcare. As we age, being close to hospitals, doctors, and pharmacies becomes more important. Many rental communities, especially those aimed at retirees, are strategically located near medical facilities. Owning a home in a remote suburb might have been ideal when raising a family, but in retirement, long drives to the doctor can become a real hardship. Health can also influence the desire to be closer to family or support networks. Renting gives retirees the flexibility to relocate as needs change. If a spouse falls ill or grandchildren live far away, the ability to move quickly without the burden of selling a house is a gift. I've seen families breathe easier knowing their loved one could move into assisted living or closer to relatives without financial entanglements. In the end, health and mobility often tip the scale in the decision to rent or own. While ownership can still work for those in good health and adaptable homes, renting provides flexibility and safety when life takes unexpected turns. It's a reminder that housing in retirement isn't just about money, it's about living in a way that supports your well-being and independence for as long as possible. Family plays a huge role in shaping the decision of whether to rent or own in retirement. For many of us, the thought of being near children and grandchildren is a guiding force. A house that once felt too big suddenly feels just right when it becomes the gathering place for Sunday dinners or holiday celebrations. That sense of closeness and connection can outweigh financial or practical concerns. I remember when my daughter moved just a few towns away. Staying in my home made sense because it meant my grandchildren could come over after school, play in the backyard, and even spend the night in the same rooms their mother grew up in. Owning gave me the space and stability to create those memories. For some retirees, this legacy of togetherness is reason enough to keep the family home. But family dynamics don't always stay the same. Children often relocate for work or personal reasons, and being tied to a property can make following them more difficult. Renting offers flexibility. I know a couple who sold their longtime home and began renting so they could move closer to whichever child needed them most at the time. That freedom gave them peace of mind, knowing they could always be nearby if circumstances changed. Support systems aren't only about family, they're also about community. Retirees who choose to rent in senior living complexes or retirement villages often find themselves surrounded by peers, with social activities and built-in companionship. That sense of belonging can sometimes be just as important as living near relatives, especially for those whose children live far away or are busy with their own lives. There's also the matter of caregiving. As we age, the likelihood of needing assistance grows. Owning a home might mean relying heavily on family for help with upkeep, errands, or even daily care. Renting, especially in a community designed for seniors, can reduce that burden. Services like housekeeping, maintenance, and even health support can take pressure off both the retiree and their family. In the end, the choice often comes down to priorities. If family is close by and the home is manageable, ownership may be the perfect way to keep traditions alive. But if flexibility and community support are more valuable, renting opens doors to options that ownership can't easily provide. Either way, family and support systems should be at the heart of the decision, because no financial plan can replace the value of love and companionship. When you reach retirement, every decision seems to carry more weight, and housing is no exception. Choosing between renting and owning isn't just about dollars, it's about lifestyle, peace of mind, and the kind of future you want to create for yourself. Both paths come with their share of benefits and drawbacks. And the key is being honest with yourself about which trade-offs you're willing to live with. Owning a home offers stability. You're in control, free from the unpredictability of rising rent. Your home is an asset, one that could appreciate and even be passed down to your children. There's a certain pride in saying, "This house is mine," and that emotional anchor can be powerful in retirement. But along with that pride comes responsibility, taxes, maintenance, and the never-ending list of repairs that can sometimes drain your wallet and energy. Renting, by contrast, offers freedom. You're not tied down to a property, and you don't have to worry about costly repairs or yard work. The ability to move closer to family, downsize, or choose a community with built-in amenities is a real advantage. Yet, the downside is a lack of control. Rent may rise, leases may change, and the place you've come to call home could be taken off the market. For many retirees, the decision isn't black and white. I've seen couples who own a home but rent a small apartment during winters in warmer states. Others keep their home base while renting in senior living communities for short periods to test the lifestyle. Blending both options can sometimes create the best balance of stability and flexibility. It's also important to weigh the emotional side alongside the financial. Some people find comfort in having roots, in knowing they can return to the same front porch year after year. Others feel alive when they're free to pick up and go, exploring new places without the burden of homeownership. Your personality, your health, and your vision for retirement matter just as much as your budget. Ultimately, the pros and cons are deeply personal. What feels like a burden to one retiree might feel like a blessing to another. The key is to step back, evaluate honestly, and choose the option that supports not just your finances but your happiness. After all, retirement isn't only about security, it's about living the life you've worked so hard to enjoy. Thanks for watching, my friends. I truly appreciate you spending this time with me, reflecting on one of the most important questions we face in retirement. Should we rent or should we own? It's not an easy choice, and it certainly isn't one size fits all. Every story, every family, every set of circumstances is unique, and that's what makes these conversations so meaningful. As I share my experiences, I hope you don't just hear advice, but feel reassured that you're not alone in facing these decisions. I've wrestled with the same questions myself, wondering if holding on to the family home was practical, or if renting would give me the freedom to live more lightly. The truth is, whichever path you choose, what matters most is that it supports the life you want in your later years. I encourage you to take time, sit down with your loved ones, and talk openly about this topic. These conversations aren't just about numbers, they're about dreams, health, family, and peace of mind. Sometimes hearing another perspective, whether from a spouse, a child, or even a trusted friend, can shed light on things we overlook when making decisions alone. If this video helped you think differently or gave you clarity, I'd love for you to join this community by subscribing. Here we talk about real issues facing retirees, everything from finances to health, lifestyle, and emotional well-being. Together we can share stories, learn from one another, and make retirement not just a chapter of life, but a time to thrive. And if you know someone struggling with this very question, rent or own, please consider sharing this video with them. Sometimes hearing another voice, another lived experience, can make all the difference. You never know who might find comfort or guidance in these words. So once again, thank you for being here. Retirement is a journey we're all walking together, step by step. My hope is that you leave today's video not just with information, but with encouragement and confidence to make the choice that's right for you. Until next time, take care of yourself, cherish the people around you, and keep building the life that feels truly yours.